a seat. Thank you. I'm Carlos's mom, Rebecca. I'm Catherine. Nice to meet you.
And I'm Carlos's dad, Jared.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So we're here today because you are both interested in doing the Matching to Sample program with Carlo at home. Yes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I have an agenda for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So this is just an outline of what we're going to accomplish in this session today. We're just going to start off with talking about what Matching to Sample is. You know that Carlos has been doing it in the IBI program already and in daycare. And so we're just going to continue that at home with you guys. And then we'll talk about all the things that need to be involved in the program and expectations for you guys, what you guys need to be doing. And then we'll do a little role-playing session at the end so you guys can have a little practice before you take it home and do it with Carlos.
That sounds great.
That's great.
Yes, perfect.
Sounds good. All right. So the first thing on our list is Matching to Sample. Are you guys familiar with this program at all? Briefly.
Yeah, not too much though. Would you be able to explain?
Yes. Matching to Sample is a program that we use to help to teach children to respond to specific stimuli or specific cues. So when you do the program at home, Carlos we want him to be able to respond to specific cues. So we're going to use these cards when we do our program procedure, and the way that you do the procedure is you would get Carlos's attention first by bringing him to the table and getting him to make eye contact with you so that he knows it's time to work. And then you would put two cards in front of him and hold up one and ask him to match to same or match. And that the goal is we get him to respond to this by placing the card that you're holding on top of the corresponding card. We want him to be successful in this so that we will give him reinforcement. We'll, positive reinforcement with a hand clap, a high five, great job, and we found that jelly beans have been highly motivating, so we'll pair that with a jelly bean. That's jelly beans.
Love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there anywhere that you could pick up in your home that would be an ideal setting to implement this?
Well, Carl's playroom. He loves to go in there.
Yeah, he loves the playroom.
Um,
Would the floor in the playroom work?
I would suggest maybe going to having a seat at a table. If your dining room or your kitchen table works.
Oh, yeah.
Just because you're able to get that, and you want to be seated across from Carlos so that you can get his attention to be focused on you and the task at hand.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it in the playroom, it might be a little bit distracting where there's all his toys around, and sitting on the floor is, it's just not as comfortable when you're trying to
Keep control over everything.
Yes, exactly.
Makes sense.
And you'll want to do this 2 to 3 times a day, I'd say. Not all at once either, because that would be very overwhelming for him.
So should we try to space out when we do it? Like maybe do it once in the morning, like after breakfast, once in the afternoon, and then once in the evening before bed kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
I would start off with maybe doing it just twice a day.
Okay.
And then building up maybe to that third time. And keeping it on that schedule too is good, because that will help Carlos realize that first we'll do this, we'll have breakfast, and then after breakfast this is when I do my work. So he'll become more familiar and expect that to happen.
Okay. So we have different work schedules. So does it have to be the same parent at the same time, or that's a concern there?
No, it's really good to have both of you involved in this.
Oh, good.
Oh, good. Yes,
good.
we want to be.
It'll help Carlos learn that he's not just responding to one person.
Mm-hmm.
Having more people do it will help him respond to different people asking him to do a task.
Okay.
So he just doesn't get familiar with one person. He's able to do it over lots of different people.
So it's focusing on the task versus the person?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
So even if we had a babysitter or something, they could
They can
them
do that too.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to do a role play session. We'll do it. Well, first we'll start off with just doing it in a step-by-step format so that you can see. I'll talk you through the steps so that you can see how you're going to do it with Carlos, and then we'll take a turn. Each of you will take a turn being Carlos, and also take a turn being yourselves
Okay.
and implementing it with Carlos.
That's great.
Okay?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
So the first thing, I'm just gonna put this here. So the first thing that you're going to do is get Carlos to come to the table. And once you have him seated across from you, you want to get his attention by saying Carlos or looking. You want to get that eye contact so that he knows that it's time to work.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So once you have him looking at you, you're going to place 2 cards face up
Mm-hmm.
in front of him. We don't want the cards to be the same. We want them to be different.
Yes.
And you want to have a corresponding card in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have those cards in front of you, you'll hold the matching card up to Carlos and say, match, and count to 3 slowly in your head.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. That gives Carlos some time to respond to your question and process it, and give him time to take the card from you and make a choice of matching.
Okay.
So if you want to take this card and match it to one of those cards,
I think right here.
yeah,
Perfect.
then and that is the right match. So then we'd say, great job, Carlos, that's fantastic. Here's a jelly
And
bean.
then take the jelly bean. Okay.
And then you would gather up the cards to indicate that that portion is complete and move on to the next one. We'll do this 10 times, and that completes one session
Okay,
of the
so
program.
what if Carlos, when the cards are on the table, he matches it incorrectly? So, no jelly bean, but what would we do then?
If he makes an incorrect choice, you wouldn't give him eye contact, because over time that eye contact is going to establish a natural reinforcement.
Okay.
Because Carlos responds to eye contact, he likes to have that.
Mhm.
So we won't give him that. We don't want to give him anything that's going to reinforce him making the incorrect choice. So you won't give him eye contact. You'll gather up the cards, and you'll say no, just in a flat type of voice.
Okay.
And then you would just put the cards back on the table again
Mm-hmm.
and start over right when you're asking him to match.
And that's when you restart the eye contact.
Yes.
Okay.
So you would look at him again and say, match. If you want to take it again and place it on one of the cards.
Okay.
And now he's making a correct choice. So then you would do the verbal reinforcement. Great job. Here's a jelly bean. And you're right, you wouldn't give him a jelly bean if he made an incorrect choice.
Okay, that's good.
And then once he's made that correct choice and he's having his jelly bean, you can gather the cards up. Make sure that for your next try, you give 2 different cards. Yeah, you don't want to give the same cards because then it gets a little bit repetitive.
Okay.
Okay?
Awesome.
All right. So now I guess we're ready to try it ourselves. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, what if Carlos has trouble with this? Are we he has is it possible for him to have like a negative association with the game, or with one of us?
You mean so that he doesn't like to do this, he comes to associate you with having to do the work?
Yeah.
That might be concerning.
Well, that's a really good question, and what we're trying to do is make this as much of a positive experience for Carlos as we can.
Mhm.
So, at first, if he's very reluctant to sit down and do the task, you could bring out something that is motivating for him. Does he have a favorite toy or book?
Snuggles.
Yes.
He loves Snuggles.
The duck.
So you could use Snuggles as something that you can only use during this time frame. It's not something that he would get to play with all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have Snuggles that he could get to hold and play with for about 30 seconds, and then you would take it from him and say, now it's time to do work, and then you would proceed. If that doesn't work, there's also, you can put the jelly beans on the table and say, first work, then jelly beans, and that might motivate him as well to try the task.
Okay.
So Rebecca, would you like a turn to play yourself and Jared be Carlos?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
All right. So, do you want we can switch spots, or do you?
Should we do it again?
Is
This
it
is fine.
straight across enough?
If you, well, no, we can
Okay.
switch spots. And that
Okay.
way, that'll give you the perspective.
So I'm Carlos.
No, I'm the
No,
mom. You're
okay,
yourself.
Okay.
Jared is Carlos. I'm myself.
All right.
Carlos. 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 Match. No, Carlos. No. Bad. Match, Carlos. Good, Carlos. Good. So how's that?
Notice a couple of things that you forgot to put in, but that's okay
That's
because
okay.
you're still new, and this is why we're here. We're doing this as a practice run. I also noticed that your tone of voice it's very assertive and authoritative, and it's a good tone to use. We're trying to keep this a little bit more positive. So if you can use a little bit more of a positive tone,
Okay.
it will help keep the flow of the task more positive as
Okay.
rather than a chore or
Okay. Sure.
and also the other thing that I noticed here was that the language that you used. When Carlos made a mistake, you were saying bad, Carlos. We want to try and keep away from that because that might associate a negative response to the task,
Okay.
and we don't want him to not like this. We want him to have a positive experience.
Okay.
This is a procedural checklist, and what it is a step-by-step format of what we've just done. So because I'm not going to be there with you all the time when you're doing this with Carlos, this is going to serve as me.
Okay.
It is broken down into steps so that you can see once you've performed this with Carlos, you can go back and review it and check off whether or not you've completed each step,
Okay.
a yes or a no. The purpose of this is to help you guys learn how to do the program. And also at the end here you can see that it has a score so that we will see how many you have correct, and it produces a score. You see it, how many you have correct, multiply by 100, and then you get a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you do this, you can check it off, find a score, and record your score. Over time, we'll be able to see whether you're making progress or if we're able to see if there's any problems.
Okay.
So it serves as a guideline for me so I can come and help you get over any humps. And it is also helpful for you to see whether or not you're doing this correctly to help Carlos learn. I think based on today's role playing, I think it would be beneficial for you both if you came in to get another practice session, if you're in agreement with that.
That's great. Yes, for sure.
Okay, so if we want to schedule, how about on Friday? Does Friday work with you?
Yeah, I get off at 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can make appointment 4:30.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll meet back here at 4:30 on Friday.
That sounds